Hey, welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to do a deep dive into something super important in Agile, and it's becoming even more important with AI coming into the picture. We're talking about trust.
You hit the nail on the head there. It's amazing how much we talk about trust in agile culture, but we rarely connect it to the bigger picture?
Yeah, for sure. So our source material for this deep dive actually takes us way back, like way back to the 1880s, to this management theory called Theory X. And, well, let me tell you, it doesn't exactly paint a pretty picture of a trusting workplace.
Yeah, not exactly a warm and fuzzy feeling there.
Right. Imagine managers just assuming everyone hates work and needs constant threats to get anything done. Like, do this or you're fired.
Oof. Yeah, talk about a motivation killer.
And you know what's crazy?
What's that?
A lot of Theory X still kind of lingers in some workplaces, even today.
It really does.
It's wild how some of these old school assumptions about work and motivation just stick around.
Absolutely. It's like they get embedded in the DNA of some companies.
So, okay, if Theory X is like the trust buster, how does Agile culture, like, try to flip the script? What makes trust so essential, especially in Agile transformations?
Okay, well, think about it this way. When you're going through an agile transformation, you're basically asking everyone to embrace new ways of working, often with tools and processes they've never used before. And that always comes with some risk.
You're right. It's a big change. It's kind of like asking someone to jump off a cliff with you. They really need to trust you've got a parachute, right?
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. If people don't trust the process or the people leading it, they're going to resist the change. Big time. And that can make the entire transformation effort completely fall apart.
Oh, for sure. So basically, trust is the foundation you're building this whole new Agile way of working on. And without it, everything is shaky.
You got it.
Okay, so then how do we actually build that trust? Like, are there specific Agile values that nurture that trust?
Definitely, there are a bunch of them. But a big one is transparency. It's not about micromanaging people, but it is about making sure everyone can access the information they need and really contribute their ideas.
I get it. It reminds me of, those open kitchens you see in some restaurants?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You can watch the chefs prepare your food. You can see they're not hiding anything. And that definitely makes you feel more confident about what you're going to be served. It builds trust.
That's a great analogy. I like that. It's about creating a culture where everyone can see how things work, understand why decisions are made, and feel empowered to help make things better.
So transparency in Agile isn't about control. It's more about collaboration and building that trust.
You got it.
Okay, that makes sense. What else is important?
Another big one is psychological safety.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So, psychological safety is about creating an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing their ideas, and even admitting when they've made a mistake without being judged or punished for it.
Oh, I see. This is where it gets really interesting for me because, you know, if you don't have that safety, people start hiding problems or they're afraid to share really innovative ideas. Because what if they get shot down? You know what I mean?
No
It's like
doubt.
that watermelon report thing, right?
Yeah.
Green on the outside, red on the
Right,
inside.
exactly. You nailed it.
Like on the surface, everything looks fine, but underneath there are all these hidden problems because people are too afraid to speak up.
Exactly. And you know what? That kind of fear-driven culture leads to a cycle of distrust.
A cycle of distrust.
Yeah, leadership doesn't trust employees. Employees don't trust leadership. Everyone ends up operating in their own little reality.
Ooh, that sounds messy. And that's got to be a recipe for disaster,
Hmm.
especially when you're trying to move fast and adapt like you do in an agile environment.
Absolutely. It's the opposite of what you want.
So how do you break that cycle? How do you actually build trust? Is it a one-time thing or more of a continuous process?
It's definitely continuous. Like building trust takes consistent effort, just like in any relationship. Leaders can't just talk the talk, they have to walk the walk?
Yeah, actions speak louder than words, right?
Exactly. They need to be vulnerable, admit their own mistakes. It shows they're human, just like everyone else, and that they're learning too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember this one time, I totally messed up a presentation, like completely bombed it. But I owned up to it right away. And you know what? My team actually respected me more for it.
I bet they did.
It made me more relatable.
Yeah.
It built trust because I wasn't pretending to be perfect.
That's a perfect example. It shows you get it. And that vulnerability is what opens the door for open
Yeah.
communication, which is absolutely crucial for agile practices like retrospectives.
Oh, right, because without trust, a retrospective just becomes another pointless meeting where everyone's afraid to be honest about what went wrong.
You got it. It's like going through the motions without any real intention of learning and improving.
Yeah, that's not helpful at all. So we've talked about how trust is essential within teams and for agile processes, but now we're going to add another layer of complexity, AI.
Right. AI changes things.
It does, because
Yeah.
what does it even mean to trust AI? Especially as it gets more sophisticated and starts to feel more, you know, human-like.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we're all trying to figure out as AI becomes more and more a part of our lives.
Yeah, it's almost like we need a whole new definition of trust for the AI era.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin with that?
Well, I think a good starting point is transparency.
Okay, so like being open about how AI is being used.
Yeah, exactly. Companies that are developing and using AI need to be upfront about how their systems work, how they're using data, and what safeguards they have in place to prevent bias.
That makes sense.
We can't just blindly trust a black box, you know?
Right, we need to understand what's going on. So it's about demanding more accountability from the companies behind these AI tools.
Exactly. We need to know what's happening under the hood, how decisions are being made, and what the potential consequences are. It's about informed trust, not blind faith.
Wow, this is getting really deep. What about the ethical implications of all this? Like, if AI is helping us make decisions, how can we be sure those decisions are fair and unbiased?
That is where things get really interesting. We have to start thinking critically about the values we're embedding in these AI systems and about who's ultimately responsible when things go wrong. It's a whole new frontier of trust.
It really is. It's fascinating. I'm starting to see how it all connects. Trust is the foundation of everything. Without it, we can't have open communication, we can't have effective agile practices, and we can't use AI responsibly.
You got it. That's the big picture right there.
And without trust, we just end up with a culture of fear and stagnation,
Exactly
which is
right.
the opposite of what Agile is all about.
Absolutely.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground already. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
We are. There's so much more to talk about.
There is. It's exciting. But I'm already feeling more aware of how important trust is, not just in my own work, but in this whole world of Agile and AI.
That's great to hear.
It's something we need to be mindful of at every level, you know?
Well, absolutely. It affects everything. And it's not just about trusting the AI itself. It's also about trusting the people and processes behind it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, who's developing this AI? What are their motivations? Are they prioritizing things like ethics and transparency?
Right, those are important questions.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of new AI tools and kind of forget that there are real people making decisions about how they're designed and used.
Totally. And we can't just assume those decisions are always going to be in everyone's best interest.
It's almost like we need to apply Agile values to the development of AI itself, you know?
Absolutely. If we want to build trust in AI, we need to bake those values in from the very beginning.
Bake them in. I like that.
We need to be thinking about fairness, accountability, transparency throughout the entire process of building these AI systems.
So it's about applying those Agile principles of collaboration, iteration, and continuous improvement to the whole world of AI.
Exactly. We can't just throw AI over the wall and expect people to trust it.
Right. That's not going to work.
We need to involve diverse perspectives, get feedback from different people, and constantly iterate to make sure these systems are aligned with our values.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. It's like adding that secret ingredient that makes the whole dish come together. You're building trust from the ground up.
That's a great way to put it.
But, you know, even with the best intentions, mistakes happen. So how do we handle it when AI systems make mistakes? Because they will.
You're right, they will, and that's where accountability comes in. We need to have clear ways of identifying and addressing errors, and for holding the people responsible accountable for those errors.
Yeah, that's important. There's that old saying, trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. We need to be prepared for those inevitable bumps in the road, you know, and have a plan for getting back on track.
Exactly. We got to have a plan. And that's where things like explainable AI become crucial.
Explainable AI.
Yeah, basically, it means we need to be able to understand why an AI system made a particular decision, especially when those decisions have big consequences.
So it's not enough to just know what the AI decided. We also need to know how it arrived at that decision.
Precisely. It's about peeling back the layers and understanding the reasoning behind the output. That transparency is what helps build trust and helps us identify any potential biases or errors in the system.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, it reminds me of that time when a hiring algorithm was found to be discriminating against women. Like if they hadn't looked into how the algorithm was working, that bias might have gone unnoticed for years.
That's a perfect example, and it shows exactly why we can't just blindly trust these systems.
We can't just assume they're always going to be fair and impartial.
We need to be constantly scrutinizing them, testing them, and holding them accountable.
So building trust in AI isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process.
Absolutely. It's about continuous learning, adaptation, and improvement. And it's about recognizing that trust is earned, not given.
Right. You got to earn that trust. This whole conversation is making me think about the bigger impact of AI on the future of work.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
If we're going to be working alongside AI systems every day, trust is going to be more important than ever, right?
I completely agree. It's going to require a fundamental shift in how we think about work, collaboration, and responsibility.
That's a big shift. So what practical steps can we take to start building that trust, both at an individual level and an organizational level?
Good question. Well, I think it starts with education. We need to demystify AI, help people understand how it actually works, and address some of those common misconceptions and fears that people have.
Yeah, fear often comes from not understanding something, right?
Exactly. It's like being afraid of the dark. Once you turn on the light, you realize there's nothing to be scared of.
I like that analogy. So it's about shining a light on AI, helping people understand it better.
That's a great way to put it. And once we understand how AI works, we can start to see its potential, not just as a threat, but as a tool that can help us do our work more effectively.
Right, it can be a helpful tool.
And that includes providing training and development opportunities so that people feel confident working with these AI systems and can actually contribute to their development and deployment.
So people can feel like they're part of the process, not just having AI forced on them.
Exactly. And it's also about creating a culture of open communication and feedback. We need to encourage people to share their concerns, ask questions, and really contribute to how these AI systems are developed and used.
So again, we're bringing in those agile values of collaboration and transparency to the way we develop and deploy AI.
Exactly. We can't just treat AI as something separate. It needs to be integrated into how we already work, into our agile practices and workflows.
Makes sense. It's all connected. So it's not just about building trust in AI itself, but also about using AI to enhance trust within our teams and organizations.
Precisely. AI can actually help us build trust by giving us insights and tools that help us work better, communicate more clearly, and make better decisions.
Wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. It's like AI is a double-edged sword.
It is.
It can either erode trust or enhance it, depending on how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important that we're talking about this now before AI becomes so commonplace that it's too late to make changes.
We need to be thinking ahead, being proactive, not reactive.
Absolutely. And that starts with each of us looking at ourselves, asking ourselves, what am I doing to build trust in my own team, in my own organization? How am I using AI in a way that promotes transparency, accountability, and fairness?
Those are great questions for all of us to think about. It seems like building trust in this age of AI is both a personal and a collective responsibility.
I couldn't agree more. It's a journey we all need to take together.
I'm really starting to get a sense of how complex this whole issue is. It's not just about trust as one simple idea, but about all the different layers of trust that come into play when we talk about agile culture, AI, and the future of work.
Exactly. It's multifaceted.
And it's something we need to keep exploring from different angles because the landscape is always changing.
You're right. It's constantly evolving.
You know, we've talked a lot about trust at the organizational level, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the individual level. What can we do as individuals to build trust in a workplace that's becoming more and more reliant on AI?
That's a great question. I think for individuals, it really starts with being proactive about our own learning. The more we understand about AI, the less intimidating it becomes. We can take courses, attend workshops, even just read articles and follow thought leaders in the AI space. Just stay informed.
Right, so it's about taking ownership of our own AI literacy, not waiting for someone to tell us what we need to know, but being curious and going out and finding that information ourselves.
You got it. And I also think it's super important to be open-minded. AI is evolving so quickly. We have to be adaptable and ready to learn new skills all the time.
It's like we need to apply that agile mindset of continuous learning and improvement to ourselves, right? To our own personal development in the AI age.
Exactly. We got to stay ahead of the curve. And we can't forget about the human element either. Even as AI becomes more prevalent, strong communication and collaboration skills will be more important than ever.
Yeah, that makes sense. At the end of the day, we're still working with people. even if some of those people are using AI tools.
Yeah.
So being able to build trust and rapport with our colleagues is still essential.
Absolutely. And that means being authentic, being vulnerable, and being willing to connect with people on a human level. AI can do a lot of things. It can analyze data, it can automate tasks, but it can't replace the human touch.
I love that, the human touch. It's what makes us unique and valuable, even in a world that's becoming more and more dominated by technology.
Exactly. So to sum it up, as individuals, we can build trust by being knowledgeable, adaptable, and human-centered. Those are qualities that will always be important no matter how much technology changes.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've gone from the historical roots of distrust in the workplace all the way to this complex world of AI and trust.
What a ride, right?
It has been, for sure. So, what's the one key takeaway you want listeners to remember from this deep dive?
That's a good question. I think it's this. Trust is not a passive concept. It's something we actively build and cultivate through our actions, our communication, and our commitment to shared values. And that's never been more important than it is today in the age of AI.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah,
Trust really is the foundation of everything. Our relationships, our teams, our organizations, even our relationship with technology.
you got it. And it's not a destination, it's an ongoing journey. We got to keep learning, keep adapting, and keep striving to build a future where trust is at the heart of everything we do.
That's a great way to put it. This has been so insightful. Thank you. I know I'm going to be thinking about this conversation for a long time.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.
It has. And a huge thank you to all of you for listening in today. If you want to dive even deeper into the topic of trust in Agile and AI, we highly recommend checking out the original video presentation. You can find the link in the episode description. Thanks again for joining us on the Deep Dive.